so sweet. What'd you tell her after that?
I became a mother at 19 unexpectedly. I was in my sophomore year of undergrad at the Ohio State University and so surprised that it happened and was nervous about just the new venture of motherhood. I always knew that I was going to finish school. I was going to have this super career, move to New York, some super swanky condo, and live this fast paced life in communications and marketing. But my life took a different direction in which I had to slow down and become a better person in order to support my family and just my growing family with the kids. So first child was born while I was 20, then the second one came at 24. And for my first two kids, they have the same father. We were married, and then we ultimately divorced while my kids were around the ages of 8 and 4. And so before the healer came, I was on a journey to really figure out my dissatisfaction with life and how I ended up becoming a single mother of two kids. And so I really feel like Spirit took me on this journey inward to um, really get an in depth look of the trauma, the triggers, and some of the things that needed to happen for my growth and development that didn't necessarily take place in my childhood. And so I dove deep into what I like to call the matrix, like looking for, natural and holistic therapies, really trying to align my life in balance. And so what I craved was balance and also living a life that I can be proud of and smile. And so my first two kids got to see me struggle. They got to see me hustle as a full-time worker, full-time employee as um, a nutrition's assistant with research, which eventually led into life coaching for an education technology company. And they also saw the outside interest and side hustle as a yoga instructor as well as a visual artist and exploring creativity. And so my life was full of creativity and taking care of these two kids, and that's all that I knew. And so eventually, as I've moved through the healing process, I finally got to a place in my life several years later where I felt open to being in a relationship again, open to loving, open to trusting, because I felt like I did the work within me to better receive love in a relationship and to approach it in such a way that I didn't feel like my partner needed to complete me, but be my complement. So in steps the healer's father. We meet in a way that's so unexpected. I wasn't looking for a relationship, and neither was he, and yet we found each other in a creative space. And meeting each other, it was more or less like we were aligned in our vision and aligned in creativity. The attraction was purely on creativity and just like minded individuals. And so the physical attraction came later. So we start this friendship, which eventually evolves into a relationship. And, one of the things that we both had in common is that we both have marriage and a divorce under our belt, except I have kids and he did not. And so that was one of the things that I knew, like I knew I wanted to have another child. I knew I wanted to have three, and I knew that's something that I wanted to be able to gift to him. And I know that might seem strange, but it's like to you that I know I can do. I enjoy being a mom, And so we tried, and our first attempt at becoming parents ended in but a miscarriage. And so this happened 3 other times. So we experienced 4 miscarriages in our relationship. And that really challenged us on so many levels. For me, it was like, why am I not able to do this thing? Am I not woman enough? Am I flawed? What's wrong with me? I thought that I did all the healing, and because I'm doing all the introspection and the healing, that I'm deserving of this opportunity to give life. And I was in a space of just self doubt and just really wondering, what is it about this experience that this is something that I cannot do and I cannot provide for him. And so, as with any relationship, experiencing miscarriage and just the natural ebbs and flows of relationships, um, we were in a place in our relationship where it was kind of strained, honestly, and wasn't even sure if we were if we had the strength to continue to move forward, because again, once you've survived a divorce, you get to a point where you feel like being alone is comfortable, and I'm really in this space. I know how to heal in isolation. I know how to live my best life as a single person, but when you try to bridge the gap and bring another person into it, it makes it really challenging. And so I think we arrived to the point in our relationship where it was a crossroads, like, look, things haven't been up to our expectations. We saw the natural decline of our relationship. Does this mean that we don't need to be together? Or does this mean that we're not trying hard enough, or there's something else that's there? And we were in the cabin for one of our anniversaries of when we met. And it was 2019, just before COVID hit. um, and we kind of looked at each other and was like, look, this is it. This next year, either we have to put in a concerted effort into really figuring out how to live together, be compassionate, compatible, and collaborative in our relationship, or we might need to go separate ways because it's been about 4 or 5 years and we don't have any kids together. This could be just an easy break. And so we made the commitment to see our relationship through one more year. And adult things happened that night. And sure enough, I was pregnant again. Now, there was no excitement with this pregnancy because, like, hey, great, I'm pregnant the 5th time, but we're in a really rocky state in our relationship. I don't even know if we're gonna make it. And so there were some doubts that, like, it wouldn't even be a viable pregnancy. I've had 4 miscarriages before, but the healer stayed. And as each month went along and each stage of the healer's development, and the bigger and bigger my belly got, it dawned on us that, yo, he's here. He's here to stay. And he came at a time where we weren't even sure we were going to make it ourselves. And so we call our son the healer, Asa, for so many reasons. But it definitely shows that healing is not always a glamorous process. Sometimes it's ugly, it's messy. There's times that you feel like giving up. You even have doubts that, look, can I do this again? Am I able to bounce back again? And his existence really have challenged us both to hone in on into the best of ourselves and to address our egos and our relationship with disappointment, our relationship with having high expectations and perfectionism, and be able to resolve that within ourselves so that way we can be better people for ourselves, for each other, for our support network, and definitely for Asa, the healer. We had an expiration date in mind. And I think what we're learning, because we've gone through couples therapy before and we're currently in couples coaching, what we learned is that relationships go through this natural cycle where there's like the honeymoon phase and everything feels so great. And there's nothing that this person can do that I'm not going to absolutely love. They have no flaws. What? They're different from anyone I've ever been with before. And then that wears off. But there's a reason why you have that. It's a way to connect and bond, right? And then reality settles in and you start to see the differences, the fundamental differences, and how we're raised, our relationship to, again, with grief, relationship to unmet needs, unmet desires. And so all that comes to play. And, what most people do at that point in the relationship, and they say, well, this isn't my soulmate. It wasn't meant to be. And they go their separate ways. But what we've learned is that if you know that you have an alignment and vision and you're not harming each other, right? If you're not harming each other, if you stick it through and find a way to release the ego, you find that on the other side of that is a greater appreciation for each other and a greater appreciation of who you are and not being so rigid in your principles, right? And so the healer's existence is showing us like, look, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And out of any relationship we've ever been in, this is the one where we are really being challenged to let go of society's norms of what a functional relationship is and find out what is really going to keep us moving forward. And that's being responsible for our own happiness and being responsible for our own sense of purpose. Own sense of